Okay, in this video we're going to give you a brief overview of the GameSalad creator layout and walk through creating a basic top-down shooter game. To get started, if you haven't done so already, launch Creator. For this video we're using Creator version 0.10.1 for Mac. Choose Blank Project under the Create a New Project heading in the dashboard. This is the home menu screen. When working on your project, you can return to the screen at any time by clicking the Home menu button. On the Project Info tab, you can enter information about your project. The Platform menu can be used to select the size of your project scenes based on common devices, including the iPhone, the iPad, and the Kindle Fire. The Scenes tab lists all the scenes that are currently in your project. From this screen you can also add and delete scenes using the plus and minus at the bottom here. You can also rename and change the order of your scenes from the screen. A list of scenes in the project can also be accessed from the scenes list at the top of your screen. The Actors tab functions the same way as the Scenes tab, except it lists the actors in your project. Actors represent all of the objects within your game. Actors can represent the character that the player is controlling, or they can be the surrounding objects or characters that your player talks to, collides with, jumps over, or generally interacts with during gameplay. While we'll not be using tables for this project, you can create tables in this tab. Creator tables can be used to reference and organize large pools of data. Your game logic can read and write to these tables during runtime, which can be a great resource for your game. A list of tables in the project can also be accessed from the tables list at the top of your screen. So let's click on the Scenes tab and choose the initial scene. Remember, we can rename this to anything we want. This is the main creator screen that you're going to see here in a second, and this is where we're going to spend most of your time. The main screen is divided into three sections: the inspector, the library, and the scene editor. From Inspector, we can create and delete actors for our project by clicking the plus and minus sign. The Attributes tab allows us to view and modify attributes in our project. Attributes are essentially value holders. They're designed to store numerical or text values to be used for different situations. They can easily be used for anything from the angle at which a cannonball is launched to displaying the number of or the name of a character in the game, or to record a rapidly changing score. There are different types of attributes available for use depending on the situation. We'll touch on that a little bit later as we do the demonstration here. The Device tab allows us to view attributes unique to your target device. A good example of this would be accelerometer controls. Next, we're going to look down here at the library. Click on the Behaviors tab if you haven't done so, and you'll see the behaviors that are available for your project. Behaviors are the actions that you can assign to actors to control how they interact, move, or change appearance. Behaviors are used to add logic to your game to control what happens when events occur, such as when an actor collides with another actor, or to make the actor take some action like changing the speed, or to change an actor's appearance, like its size, its image, color, or transparency. A brief description of what each behavior does is shown when you select it. The Images and Sounds tab are where your project stores art and sound assets that you imported into the project. Once you have them and you're imported them here, you'll be able to drag these assets into the project as needed. Finally, we have the Scene Editor. This is where you actually position actors into the scene. Like other programs, the scene can be broken down into different layers to add even more effects to the end result. So now that we've got the introductions out of the way, let's move on to the fun stuff and start building our game. The first thing we're going to do is import the art and sound assets that we'll be using for this project into Creator. So let's click the plus sign down at the bottom here under Images, and we're going to open our Assets folder here and grab all of our images that we need. There we go. We're also going to go over to the Sound tab, and we're going to import our sounds. Another way that you can do that without using the plus or minus sign is actually just dragging the assets from the folder on your Mac into the library, and Creator will import them for you. Now, first off, we're going to create our hero. For the hero, we're going to be using this blue robot. So we're going to click and drag the hero into the inspector, and that's going to create a representative actor for this. There are two types of actors in Creator, prototypes and instances. The version of our hero in Inspector is a prototype. If we drag this actor into the scene, a copy of it is made for that scene, and this is called an instance. Prototype is like the mold, and instances created from it will have all the same properties as the prototype. Now we have the ability to make changes to the individual instance. This is called unlocking it, to give each instance its own personality. I like to think of it as the ghost from Pac-Man as instances. Each ghost has the same basic look, but they each have their own set of rules and behaviors. So to get started, we're going to give our actor some behaviors. We're going to start with movement controls. We're going to set up what we call tank controls: forward, backward, rotate left, rotate right. Very simple. For this example, we're going to associate this with keyboard keys, but could easily adapt these to touch controls for mobile devices or even mouse clicks. So we're going to double click our hero to start adding behaviors. Now that we've opened him, we have access to the attributes for this actor. And on the right hand screen, we have the list where we can actually start adding behaviors to control him. Now, since we're starting with movement, we're going to make a set of rules to outline the controls. Click Create Rule at the top right of the screen. Rules are basic conditional statements. If certain condition X happens, Y is going to be the resulting behavior. In this case, our condition is going to be a keyboard key being pressed. So we're going to change the variables to actor receives event, key is down. Now the key that we're going to choose for this one is the up key, because we're going to do that for forward. So we're going to click keyboard. GameSalad is going to launch a virtual keyboard. So in this, we can click up to select that key. So our rule reads, when the actor receives the event, keyboard key up is pressed. The behavior that we're going to do is move. That's going to be the result. So we'll go to the behaviors list, and we're going to drag move into the rule. Now we can adjust the direction of the movement. We're going to stick with forward for this relative to the actor, and we can adjust the speed. For this, we're going to just change it to something a little bit more manageable, like 200. That's one down, 3 more to go. Now we could repeat all of these steps, or we could utilize shortcuts to speed up the process. So if we click on our rule, that actually highlights it in blue, and we hold down the Option key on our Mac, and we click and drag this down to an open spot under the rule, we're going to duplicate it. Now we have 2 copies of this, and all we have to do is make little tweaks to this to change this for the new rule. So we're going to change this from the up key to the down key, and we're going to change the direction to backwards. So if 0 is forward, 180 is backwards, and we're going to keep him at the same speed. So there we have forward and backward right off the bat. And we're also going to set up rotation. So what we can do is create a new rule here, and same conditions, keyboard key, and we're going to choose left, and this time we're going to do rotate instead of move, and he's going to go counterclockwise, and then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to option drag into the open spot here, and we're going to change this to when the right key is pressed, and we're going to have him rotate clockwise at this point. Alright, now this next part is a little bit of housekeeping. It's optional, but it's a good habit. With Creator, we can actually rename all of these rules. I think it's a very smart thing to do. That way, if later on you're troubleshooting your project, it'll be easier for you to locate logic stacks that are causing problems. So what we can do is go up to here, and we'll double click up at the top, and we're going to name this one forward. We're going to name this one backward. We'll call this one counterclockwise. And we'll name this one clockwise. So now we've got everything labeled. Now we can organize this even further by creating a group. A group is just a shell that'll help us keep things organized. So what we'll do is click the little arrow next to each to minimize. We're going to create a group, and actually put one in there already. So now we'll just drag each of these into our group, and we're going to name this group Movement Controls. And now we have all of our movement controls in one location. Now that we have our movement controls in place, let's test them. This is where Creator really shines. We can use the preview feature to test changes as we make them, giving you immediate feedback on your development ideas. Click on the back arrow to get back to our main screen. We'll now drag our hero prototype into the scene and create an instance. Remember, this instance will have all the behaviors of our prototype. Place the hero in the upper left-hand corner of the screen. Click the green preview arrow and test your game. Now we should be able to move forward, backward, and rotate in both directions. Looks pretty good. Now we can't let our hero go out unarmed, right? Now we're going to add the shooting function for this actor. First we'll create the projectile actor that's going to be used. Drag the blue bullet image from the library to Inspector to create the prototype. We don't need a rule for this one because all we want this actor to do is move forward every time it's on screen. So what we're going to do is drag move from the behavior list in library and place it into our actor. The second behavior we're going to add to this is the destroy behavior. To manage the memory in our game, we're going to instruct the game to destroy this actor after a set period of time. This will help improve performance when playing our game on a mobile device. To do this, we'll use a timer. Timers are ways to trigger logic at specific intervals or times. So we're going to drag a timer behavior from our library into our actor editor. We're going to choose the after option, and we're going to change this to 1.5 seconds, so 1.5. Now what we want the behavior to do at this point is destroy this actor. So what we're saying is that once this actor has been spawned on the scene, after 1.5 seconds we want to destroy it. Click the back arrow to get back to our scene. Now what we're going to do is set up the shoot command in our hero using another rule. So let's open up our prototype again, and we're going to create a new rule. The condition for this one is also going to be a key press. We're going to choose spacebar, and the behavior that we want to happen with this is that when the spacebar is pressed, we're going to spawn an actor. We're going to spawn the blue bullet. We're going to do this in back of the actor as the layer order, and we're going to offset it a little bit so that it looks like it's coming from the gun instead of directly from the center of our actor, which is the way it would be by default. So we're just going to add a little bit. We're going to add 20 pixels on the x-axis, so it'll spawn right around where he's holding the gun. Now for additional flair, we're also going to add a sound effect into this. So we'll go into our sounds, and we're going to take the laser and we're going to drag it right into the rule. That's a shortcut. We could also go into behaviors and we could do play sound and select the laser. Works the same way. But for the sake of this, we're just going to drag the sound into there. We're going to leave everything by default here, but you do have the option to modify sound volume and pitch from this behavior. So once again, now every time that we press the space bar, we're going to spawn a bullet and we're going to hear a sound effect. So let's give it a try. At this point, our preliminary controls are in place. The next step is going to be to make our adversary. For this, we're going to use the villain asset. So let's go back into our library, and we're going to drag villain up into inspector to create an actor. For what we're going to do with him in this game is we're just going to have random spawns happen for our villain. So he's going to appear at various spots throughout the scene with the goal of our hero being able to destroy those. Since we have our villain, he's going to have a gun and a bullet also. Let's go ahead and drag our red bullet into the scene also. Now, at the beginning of the demo, we mentioned creating attributes. That's what we're going to do right now. In Inspector, let's click on the Attributes tab. And then what we're going to do is we're going to click on the plus sign to add, to create a new attribute. Here are the different types that I had mentioned earlier. We're going to choose Real for this example. Hit Choose. And we're going to name this one Hero Position X. We're also going to create a second one for the Y attribute, or for the Y position, so another real attribute, and we'll rename this one Hero Position Y and press Enter. Now, in our hero prototype, we're going to drag the constrain attribute behavior into our logic. We can minimize this to save space. Click on the three dots here to open the attribute browser. And now we're going to navigate to the attribute that we just created. That's going to be found under Game, then Hero Position X. Double click on that to accept it. Then we're going to click the E symbol to open up the expression editor. This tool is useful for creating complex mathematical equations that might be needed for your games. In this situation, we're going to be using the expression editor to actually point to another attribute. So click on the first drop-down menu here, and this time we're going to point this to Hero Position X. See, it was added here. Now, it's very important that you click on the green check mark to actually accept this value. And we're going to do another constraint attribute and do this the same way for the Y attributes. So Game, Hero Position Y, to Self for the Hero Position Y, and click the green check mark. What this does is it tells the game to keep track of our hero's location in the scene via his X and Y coordinates. Our villain is actually going to use this information so it knows where to aim. So now that we've got these in here, let's go back into our villain. Go back, and we're going to open up the prototype for villain. Now, so that he can point at our hero and try to shoot him, we're going to use the rotate to position behavior. Now, using the expression editor here, we're going to tell our robot to rotate to the X and Y values of wherever our hero's position is. And that's what those attributes that we created are going to be used for. So open up the expression editor, choose the first drop-down menu, and we're going to have him rotate to Game, Hero Position X. Make sure we hit the green check mark again. And Game, Hero Position Y, and click the check mark there. And we're going to uncheck Stops on Destination because we want him to continue rotating as our hero moves, and that way he doesn't just stop once he hits there and doesn't move any further. Now we're going to add shoot controls for our villain as well. This will be slightly different from the controls that we had for the hero. Since we're not controlling it, we're just going to set those on a timer to go off randomly. So let's go back into library and let's bring a timer into the actor. And we're going to use the expression editor here to set up a random value here. This is one of the mathematical formulas that are available inside Creator by default. So we're going to choose random from the list, and we do need to select a minimum and maximum value here. We're going to change this for a minimum of 1 and maximum of 2 for our values, and click the green check mark. Basically what we're saying here is that every at some period of time, a random time between 1 and 2 seconds, the action that we want to happen is to spawn our bullet. Basically, shoot at our hero. So we're going to spawn actor, and we're going to choose the red bullet this time. The next part of this is we're going to add a destroy behavior to our villain, because what we want to happen is that when our hero shoots this target, we're going to remove him from the excuse me, we're going to remove him from the scene. So we're going to create a new rule, and we're going to name it destroy. The condition for this is when this actor overlaps or collides, and the actor we're going to select is the blue bullet. The behavior that we want to happen here is we want our actor to be destroyed. So we'll go back into library and drag that in here. Now for an added effect, we're going to add a sound effect to this also. So what we can do here, once again, go into sounds, and we're going to choose the boom option here. So what's going to happen is when he collides with the blue bullet, the actor is going to go away, and it's going to play the boom sound effect. So we can go back to our main scene. Now we need to add movement controls for our red bullet. There's two ways that we can do this. We can either go into the red bullet and manually configure it like we did with the blue bullet, or we can go into the blue bullet and we can copy everything like we did before and use Command C, like a copy, open up our red bullet, and Command V. Oops, we only need to do it once. And now our red bullet has movement and destroy behaviors just like the blue bullet does. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create what we're going to call a spawner on here, because we need to set up a set of rules so that the game knows when and where to actually create the villain actors in the scene. So we're going to click the plus sign. We're going to name this one spawner. Double click on spawner to open up the actor, and we're going to set up another timer here to set up more random intervals just like we did before. We're going to do this random also, so again go to the second menu here, random, and we're going to do this, let's set our minimum and maximum rule 1 and 3. So this will be every period of time, some random time between 1 and 3 seconds. We're going to spawn an actor. This time it's going to be the villain. It's going to be position relative to scene. Now we have to decide where on the screen it's going to be. Now again, since we're doing this random, we're going to use the expression editor. We're going to do 0 as our minimum, and we're going to choose as a maximum 568. The reason we're choosing this number is because our scene is set up at the default size for the iPhone 5, which is, if it's in landscape mode, which is where we are set up, it's 568 pixels across. It's 320 pixels high, so we're going to choose our random, oops, not that one. a value between 0 and 320. So once again, this is telling our game that at random intervals between 1 and 3 seconds, it's going to spawn the villain actor at a position between 0 and the max width of the iPhone screen, and between 0 and the max height of the iPhone screen. Now this actor is actually going to be off camera, so to minimize the amount of space he takes up, we're going to change the size of the way the actor looks. So normally it's 100 by 100 as a default. We can double click into this attribute and change it to 40 by 40. That way it takes up a little bit less screen space in our project. Then what we're going to do is go back, and we're going to drag our spawner into the upper left-hand corner outside of the camera in this light gray area. The black area represents what our camera can see. The light gray is still in the scene, but it's not visible. So what we have now is our actors ready to spawn. What we want to do finally is set up a scoring system for this. That way we can keep track of how well we're doing in the game. We're going to do this very simply with a system where every time that the villain is destroyed, we're going to add points to a score tally. So let's go into Inspector, and we're going to create a game attribute. This one's going to be an integer, and we're just going to name it score. On the Actor tab, we're going to create a new, or we're actually going to open up Villain so we can set up the logic for him. Now we already have in place the logic to destroy this actor, so let's just add on to that instead of making up a new rule. We're going to use the change attribute behavior, and we're going to drag this in as part of what happens when our villain is destroyed. What we're going to do is we're going to change the attribute, and we're going to point attribute browser to the score attribute that we just made. And using the expression editor, we're going to change the value of this every time this happens to game score plus 10. Now you could change this to whatever value you wanted, 5 points, 1 point, 100 points, that's up to you. Click the green check mark to accept that. And that's all we need to do for that. To show the score, however, we're going to make basically a scoreboard. So let's create another actor and name this one Scoreboard, and double click the actor to open it. We're going to use the display text behavior for this actor, and what we're going to do is have it report the score attribute that we created here. So click on the expression editor, and we're going to point it to game.score, and make sure you hit the green check mark to accept it. From here you can also choose the font size and the font color for how you want this to display. And what we're going to do is go back here, and we're going to drag this into, let's say, the top right corner here. Now what we'll see here once we hit the preview is that should give us the number 0. However, now we can see our actors responding too. Great, so we know that that's working. Now 0 on, or I'm sorry, the white text on white background doesn't exactly work for this situation. So what we can do is go into our scoreboard, and what we can do is go under color and change the alpha from 1 to 0. Press enter. So now what we'll see, basically what that does is it gets rid of the background, makes it transparent. So when we preview it this time, we should just see the number 0. Excellent. Alright, so we're almost there. What we want to do next is we're going to set up a lose scenario for our game. You know, our hero is not perfect. We have to set up a way for the game to end at some point. Now we're going to go up to the home screen, and we're going to create a new scene. So let's make sure we're on the Scenes tab and hit the plus sign to create a new scene. We're going to change this one and name it Game Over. Okay, so now we're in our game over scene. You'll see our instances are not here. Let's create another actor, and we'll just name this actor game over as well. And open up game over. And we're also going to use display text on this actor. Now we're not going to have this change or display anything in real time, changing value like we did with the first actor. We're going to bake in a set message for this. We're going to say game over, press spacebar to try again. And again, we can choose font size, we can choose font type, and we can choose color while we're in this behavior. Now what we're going to do is we're going to drag game over into the center, and we'll preview. Once again, see we have the white background there, so we need to make sure that we go into our prototype, and now that we have it placed properly, and we're going to change the alpha value from 1 to 0. When we preview, oops, we need to go back to our scene, preview again, there we go. So now we have a lose message for what's going to happen when the player loses. Alright, so now we need one more important part for the reset to work. We need to actually set the commands for it to reset the game. So we're going to go back into our game over actor, and we're going to create a rule. And the rule that we're setting up here, just like it said in the display text, is when the keyboard key of spacebar is pressed, we're going to choose the reset game behavior. What this will do, this will wipe everything and put us back to the initial scene. So once we get to scene 2, which is the game over scene, it'll display the message saying press the spacebar to try again. When the user actually presses the spacebar, it's going to return us back to scene 2. Just like, or I'm sorry, back to scene 1, just like that. Alright, so we're in the home stretch at this point. The last thing that we need to do is we've set up the losing condition, what happens. Now we need to set up the rule for our actor. So let's open up Hero again. And we're going to create the losing rule here. So what we want is when Hero collides with the actor of type the red bullet, which is what we're going to be fired, what the villain's going to fire at us, we're going to change the scene and we can either set it to previous scene, which would be generically the next scene, or we can specify game over. If your scenes aren't set up in the menu in the proper order for whatever reason, you can specify which one you want it to go to if it isn't necessarily the next scene. Since we've named this one game over, we're just going to directly point it to game over. So what this rule is doing again is saying that when our hero collides with the red bullet, we're going to advance to the game over scene. And that's about it. So let's go back to our scene here. We're going to go to scene 1, our initial scene, and we can even place a villain in here for starters. And if we hit preview, we're going to give it a shot. So we have our shoot behavior, dodge the bullet, and he turns and shoots at us. Get some more points. Oh, see, he hit us. Game over. We got our display message. If we hit spacebar, we're back to where we started, just like we put in another quote. So that's that. That's pretty much everything we're going to go over today for this video. From here, you could start to actually customize the project even more. You could add explosion animations when the bullets collide with the actors. You can change the color scheme. You could use custom fonts to really put some shine on your scoreboard. You can adjust the speed of the villains and the hero and how fast they shoot. The possibilities are really endless. So I hope you found that informative, and good luck with your project.